Hello, and welcome to the Manitoba Arts Council's information session. My name is Deirdre Tomkins. I'm a program consultant at MAC, and I'll be hosting the presentation today with my colleague, Martine Friesen. We're joining you here from our individual offices within the Manitoba Arts Council. We're also joined by our invisible communications staff, Elise Sourds and Vi Hussen, who will be managing the chat feature and the Q&A throughout the presentation, and they'll be providing helpful links in the chat. You will also notice that we have ASL interpretation. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that the Manitoba Arts Council carries out its work on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene nations, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. Our office is located on Treaty 1 territory, but our work extends throughout Treaties 2, 3, 4, and 5. We respect the treaties made on these territories, and we remain committed to working in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. We recognize that Indigenous peoples' knowledge of and relationship with the land, water, and air is key to a sustainable future for all. At the Manitoba Arts Council, we respect the distinct worldview and creative culture of Indigenous communities by prioritizing Indigenous artistic and cultural expression through our granting programs and our initiatives. This presentation today will take only about 25 minutes and will be followed by a Q&A period for a total of up to an hour. If you have any questions during the presentation, please leave them in the chat or the Q&A box, and our communication staff will read them out after the presentation. If you wish to use closed captions, you can find these either at the top or bottom of your screen. This presentation, not including the Q&A, will be recorded and will be available on the Manitoba Arts Council website. In today's presentation, we'll be discussing who can apply for MAC grants, a few of our grant programs, how to apply, and what accessibility tools and financial support we offer. Most of the photos in this presentation were submitted in final reports by MAC-funded artists whose work deals with themes of disability and the body, or projects by deaf and disability arts organizations. The photo on this slide is of a volunteer for Art Beat Studio with brown hair, wearing a denim shirt, holding up a level on top of a hanged painting of butterflies and plants. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the Manitoba Arts Council. The photo on this slide is of actor Debbie Patterson in the play Shakespeare's Will, presented by Shakespeare in the Ruins in 2021. She is holding up a small figure of a bird over a table that represents a landscape. The Manitoba Arts Council is an independent agency that receives funding from the provincial government. We fund the creation and sharing of arts and culture for the benefit of all Manitobans. We operate in both official languages, just not tonight. Funding decisions are made through a peer assessment process. For the vast majority of our grants, MAC staff does not decide who gets funded. This means that applications are reviewed and assessed by other artists and arts professionals that are paid by MAC to make funding decisions. MAC funds individuals, groups, and organizations. For this evening's presentation, we'll focus on individuals and groups. So let's take a look at the full list of grants currently available through the Manitoba Arts Council. There are 14 different grants in total. They are organized into 6 streams based on the activity of the projects they fund. Your eligibility for these grants will depend on several factors, which Martine will discuss later in the presentation. Our Create stream has only one grant, Create. As the name suggests, this grant supports the creation of art. Our Share stream supports the sharing of artistic work and includes the Artists in Communities, Artists in Schools, Present, and Tour grants. Our Learn stream supports learning and artistic development activities and includes the residencies, scholarships, and travel professional development grants. Our Indigenous 360 stream is available to Indigenous applicants specifically to support Indigenous artists and communities. Our support stream invests in the long-term sustainability of Manitoba's arts and cultural sector and includes the arts leaders, operate, and strengthen grants. And finally, our Recognize stream celebrates artistic achievement and includes the prizes and competitions grants. For today's presentation, we will focus on Create, Artists in Communities, Travel Professional Development, and Present. MAC is committed to supporting arts and culture for all Manitobans, and therefore we value equity in our funding and policies. You can find our accessibility plan on our website at www.artscouncil.mb.ca. You may be eligible for funds for disability-related supports and services, to create a profile in Manipogo, to write an application, to complete your awarded project, or to submit a final report. Martine will talk about these disability supports later in the presentation. Let's look at a few of our most popular grants for individual artists and artistic groups, starting with Create. The Create grant supports the creation of new work or development of works in progress across all artistic disciplines. Examples of projects that may be funded by this grant include creating a series of paintings, writing a novel or a collection of poems, composing a music score, choreographing a performance, developing a screenplay, or participating in a self-directed residency. The deadlines for Create are February the 15th and October the 10th. Emerging artists are eligible to receive up to $7,500, and established artists are eligible to receive up to $15,000. This can go toward material costs, living expenses, and other direct costs related to the project. The photo on this slide and the last is of Kristen Nelson sitting in front of a loom on a wood bridge over a river in Riding Mountain National Park, where she was an artist in residence. Next up, the Share Artists in Communities grant supports applicants that face barriers or serve a community that faces barriers to accessing artistic opportunities. Barriers may include being located outside Winnipeg or being part of specific populations that have been historically underserved based on ability, age, culture, economy, gender, geography, or sexual orientation. Examples of projects which may be funded by this grant include creating artwork, producing a live event, doing a workshop, curating an exhibition or art show, hosting a gathering. The deadlines for Share Artists and Communities are January the 30th, May the 15th, and September the 15th. Small-scale projects are eligible to receive up to $5,000, while large-scale projects can receive up to $15,000. The photo on this slide and the last is of Susan Aidan Abbott and her dog doing a performance piece. She's crouching next to a figure wearing a pig mask who is laying on a floor, while a video of someone else wearing a pig mask is projected on the wall next to them. This was part of the exhibition Cryptic, presented at the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba in partnership with Arts Accessibility Network. Next up, the Learn Travel Professional Development Grant supports the development of an artist's practice or career. Examples of projects that may be funded by this grant include attending workshops, taking specialized training, working with a mentor, attending conferences, or travel costs for arts opportunities. Only individuals can apply for this grant. The deadline is every 6 weeks. The grant is up to a maximum of $1,000 and can cover course fees, travel, per diem, accommodation, and other related costs. The photo on this slide and the last is of a sound sculpture by Erica Lincoln that is a mast suspended in the air between spools of thread above a computer and other hardware. Now, where the Create grant supports the creation of artistic work, the Share Present grant supports the presentation and publication of that work. Examples of projects that may be funded by this grant include concerts, art exhibitions, play or dance presentations, and festivals. The deadlines for Share Present are February 25th and September the 10th. Applicants can receive up to $15,000 for this grant, and it can be used toward presentation and/or exhibition costs. The photo on this slide And the last is of a performer from one of Sick and Twisted Theatre's cabarets. The person is bearded and sitting in a wheelchair with tan-colored translucent fabric draped over them. If any of these grants seem like they might be a good fit for your project, we're going to walk you through how to apply. This slide shows a photograph of 6 dancers in a dance studio with gray floor, white walls, ballet bars along the back, and many colorful posters of dance events on the walls. The dancers are in a line and they're all jumping at the same time. I'm going to pass the presentation on to my colleague, Martine Friesen now.
Hi. So there are 2 ways to apply for a grant at the Manitoba Arts Council. The first way is by using MAC's online application system, which we call Manipogo. The second way is by using a paper or PDF application. People may choose to work on a paper or PDF application for a number of reasons. If this sounds like the best option for you, you can ask MAC staff to send you an application, or you can download a copy on the grant's webpage. For today's presentation, we'll be focusing on the steps to apply using Manipogo. So the first step to applying is to create a profile in Manipogo. To do that, visit www.manipogo.ca. If you're a new client, click Register Here. You will be asked to answer our short questionnaire and to provide us with your contact information. You'll then be asked to upload your current artistic resume or group history and have the option of filling out our voluntary information form. At this point, you will submit your profile and MAC staff will need to approve it. And this process can take 2 to 5 days. MAC has several different applicant types that we fund. For today's presentation, we will focus on 5 of them: professional artist, arts cultural professional, Indigenous knowledge keeper, student of the arts, and professional arts group. So let's review them now. First, let's look at the professional artist. To qualify as a professional artist, you must have a history of professional presentation or publication in any artistic medium, such as music, dance, theater, visual arts, literary arts, and more. You must be recognized by your peers as a professional in your art form. You may be either at an emerging or established stage in your career. Emerging artists generally have between 1 and 5 years of professional experience, and established artists have over 5 years of experience. Next, let's talk about arts cultural professionals. To qualify in this category, you must work in the arts, but not as an artist. A few examples include arts administrators, producers, technicians, or editors, to name just a few. You must commit significant time to your work in the arts and be recognized by your peers as an arts cultural professional. Indigenous knowledge keepers are also eligible to apply for funding. They are First Nations, Métis, or Inuit people who support the preservation and sharing of specific Indigenous worldviews, cultural practices, traditions, and art forms. MAC also funds students of the arts. These are individuals over the age of 18 who intend to pursue a professional career as an artist. They are studying at a certified program of study in any arts discipline and are enrolled as a full-time student at an undergraduate or graduate level at a post-secondary institution, professional training school, university, college, etc. And finally, professional arts groups may also apply. They are a group, ensemble, or collective made up of 2 or more members working in an artistic practice. The majority of members must be professional Manitoba artists. The Manitoba Arts Council must make the check payable to the name of the group and not the name of one of its members. Therefore, your group will need to have a bank account. Okay, so now you've created your profile. While you're waiting for it to be approved, take the time to read through the general guidelines. You will find a lot of useful information there. Then think about the project you are seeking funding for. Define what it is you want to do. Then find the grant that is right for your project's activity and read through the specific guidelines for that grant. Once your profile is approved, you can start drafting your application. You will find the grant you're looking for under the heading Upcoming Deadlines. we recommend starting your application well ahead of the deadline. When it comes to writing your application, be clear, use plain language, and avoid repetition. Also, write in the first person and check for spelling or grammatical errors. Give it to a friend to read over. It's also important to review the assessment questions provided at the end of our grant guidelines. These are the questions assessors will use to score your application. We highly recommend you speak with a MAC program consultant before you start working on any applications. It's a good opportunity to discuss your project and what grants are available to you, review your ideas, and ask questions. Program consultants can also review your application before you submit. You can get in touch with a MAC program consultant either by calling our help desk or visiting our website. We'll provide our contact details at the end of the presentation. The photo on this slide is of 3 MAC program consultants, Cheryl Mickey, Tracy Longbottom, and Marion Butler. You'll submit your application through Manipogo. Online applications are due before 11:59 p.m. on the deadline day. Or if you are submitting a paper application, it must be sent and date stamped by the day of the deadline. If you need more time to finish your application, you can automatically give yourself an additional 5 days to submit your application by clicking the Extend button on the bottom right corner of the application. This is a pilot project that we are currently testing in response to feedback we have received from applicants. Once submitted, your application will then be assessed by a committee composed of fellow artists and arts professionals through our peer assessment process. You should hear back from MAC whether your application was successful or not within 3 months. If you do receive a grant, congratulations, you'll need to complete a funding agreement, and your payment will arrive as a check in the mail. Once your project is finished, you will need to submit a final report to us within 18 months of being awarded. If you do not receive a grant, you can always call us to receive feedback from the assessors. You can consider reworking your application and resubmitting it to the next deadline. Please remember that this is a competitive process, so don't be discouraged. Okay, now let's review the accessibility funds available at MAC. MAC provides funds to contribute to costs for disability-related supports and services. The photo on this slide is a work by artist Yvette Senarini, depicting cutouts of deer walking in the forest at night, collaged with gears and other mechanical pieces. If you are an artist who is deaf or living with a disability, or represent a deaf and disability arts group or organization, you may be eligible for financial assistance for the grant process and financial assistance for awarded projects. Financial assistance is awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. We strongly recommend that you contact MAC Help Desk before you hire your service provider. If you need help using Manipogo, you can request assistance from a service provider to help you to create your profile, to write a grant application, and to submit a final report. MAC will provide the following funds for these services. For profile assistance, up to a maximum of $150. For application assistance, up to a maximum of $700. And for final report assistance, up to a maximum of $200. The process to apply for assistance for the granting process is as follows. First, approach a service provider for a quote. Then, fill out the request form, which is available on the MAC website. Submit the form and the quote from your service provider to MAC Help Desk. Then complete and submit your profile or your application or your final report. And then either you or your service provider sends an invoice to MAC, and MAC pays the service provider. You can also apply for financial assistance to help cover the costs of disability-related services and supports necessary to complete your project. These funds are available if you are deaf or living with a disability, or you represent a deaf and disability arts cultural group or organization. The funding amount is up to a maximum of $2,000, and this can be paid to either the applicant or the service provider. And the process to apply for assistance for awarded projects is almost identical to applying for funds for the grant process. First, you approach your service provider for a quote, and then you fill out the request form. Again, this is available on the MAC website. Then submit the form and the quote from your service provider to the MAC help desk, and then MAC notifies you whether your request is approved. Now, if your grant has already been awarded, you will be notified within 2 weeks of submitting your accessibility funding form. If your grant hasn't been awarded, you will be notified within 2 weeks of being awarded the grant. Unfortunately, if your grant is declined, you will not receive financial assistance. And payment can be made either to you or your service provider. What are some eligible things? Well, sign language interpretation, personal attendance, support workers, guides and readers fees, transcription services, rental of specialized equipment or vehicles, specific accommodation and travel costs. As to what's not eligible, well, anything that you're not already receiving funding for, and anything not tied to the activity you're applying for. Again, all accessibility funding requests will be reviewed on a first come, first served basis by MAC staff based on the following criteria: a reasonable budget and the availability of funds. If funds run out, a notification will be placed on the MAC website. So as promised, here is the contact information for the MAC help desk. We'll also be providing this information in the chat. And here's the contact information for both Dee and myself. We'd be happy to chat with you and set up a time for a consultation. The painting on this final slide is by Ryan Smolik, entitled Dream Scene, depicting a vibrant Technicolor portrayal of two royal-looking people riding behind a piano on wheels pulled by two horses. Thank you for listening to our presentation. I hope you learned a little bit more about the Manitoba Arts Council, our grant system, and the application process. We'll now move over to the question period. But if you do have questions later or we don't get to answering your questions, please don't hesitate to call or email us. We are always happy to help.